this is very much precedent setting, and we're honored that you're here with us. We want to formally call the meeting to order. We're going to do a little invocation, and then we'd like to do an honor song for you. And then you all can call the meeting to order on your side. And I think at that point, we've all got an agenda. If it's all right with you, Commissioner, we'll just have it go kind of informally after that.
Wonderful.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. Sepkecha Gamokamsh, Sepkecha Tonkani Maklaks, Sepkecha Kaakani. Thank you, Ancient of the Ancients. Thank you, ancestors. Thank you, ancestors of long ago. Sepkecha for our guests here today. Sa'wayalknots, please help us. Help us to have good, open conversations, to find our common ground and to respect our differences. Because we are all relatives. So if we could stay standing just for a moment. Thank you. Yes, thank you. So, Commissioner, you want to call it to order on your side?
Yes, thank you, Chairman. So I'd like to call to order the Board of Commissioners in our joint meeting with the Klamath tribes. Thank you very much for having us in your home today. Present with me is Commissioner Hensley, Commissioner Minty, and I am Commissioner Derek DeGroot. It's February 16th and it is 2:43. That's all.
So we'll do a few introductions on our side. GOSS is Clay Dumont, and I'm the chairman.
GOSS is Gail Hatcher, and I'm vice chair.
Welcome everybody, Roberta Cross, Tribal Council Secretary. I'm glad to have you here.
Welcome everybody, I'm Brandy Hatcher, the Tribal Council Treasurer. Nice to see you. Welcome aboard.
Thank you. Welcome, Les Anderson, Member at Large, Tribal Council, also an Interim Director for Culture and Heritage, and a small part of planning as well.
Ms. Rose?
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, and thank you for being a part of the meeting today, and we appreciate you and Thank you, Tribal Council. I just got back from an appointment, so I just hooked up at home.
Angie.
Hi, I'm Angie Morrill. I'm the Public Relations Director. Glad to be here today.
Jennifer Vigil, I'm Tribal Council's Executive Assistant.
And I think that's all of us.
Perfect.
So,
Well, do you, sorry, and I just introduced you, but do you have anything I don't want to be?
Is it working? Yes. I just want to reiterate what Chair DeGroot said. Thank you for letting us come to your home today, and we're really excited to be here. And we hope this is a new path forward. We'd like to have many meetings with you and work really closely with you to establish some goals and priorities that meets needs of everybody in the basin. So thank you very much for hosting today, and we look forward to having you at the Government Center at our next meeting.
And I would only add that this is such an exciting time to be working in the state of Oregon, and I'm very excited to partner with you. We were recently in Washington, D.C., and the amount of opportunity cannot be underscored. I don't think that there has been a time in any of our careers where there's been as much opportunity for collaborations on projects and really an emphasis on getting things done. So I look forward to walking alongside of you and helping you lift up priorities that are priorities for you, and hopefully, you can collaborate on things that we consider priorities for us, all for the betterment of this land that we all love so much.
and I wanted to say, when I said this was precedent setting, it really is. I mean, we've come a long ways, and I think that the mutual respect that's on display here, the recognition of the things that we have in common, the respect for the differences that we have, and the willingness to talk openly about them. I think this really is, it's ditch-yonks. It's good medicine. So thank you for being here. We're honored. So turn it over to you. You want to get us started?
Sure. I don't know if we just want to maybe go through the agenda, because I think there's some duplicates here. Just as, we mentioned earlier, I think a lot of us had the same ideas of topics for discussion. But as I go through it, I have Cultural Center, and then Highway 97, and then Hagelstein Park Museums, Berkeley Springs, bipartisan infrastructure projects, and housing. I believe Hagelstein and Berkeley Springs are probably the same conversation, right? So we can probably just kind of scratch it. And then Highway 97 and BIP, are we thinking the same thing there?
Yeah, I think we are. I think that infrastructure projects could be beyond simply the highway, but yeah, I think we're on the same page. So people watching, we both asked what we wanted on the agenda, and we put the same things on the agenda.
Yes, which I think is incredible. Speaks to kind of how the conversation is going right now, right? So the first thing on here is a cultural center, and I don't know, was that us? Was that?
Well, it may have been another one that we all had on our mind, but if I may, Chair, it is my understanding that the tribes are working on a cultural center project. I did want to share, I don't know if it's come to your attention that there is a group of citizens that are working on, I'm not sure exactly what name they've landed on as of late, but I'll call it a watershed interpretive center. And so I find it a really fascinating effort that they're undertaking. They're still in the very initial phases, but as it came on my radar that the tribes were also talking about a cultural center, I don't know if perhaps there's a way to combine those projects. I don't know if the vision for them is too different, but I thought at the very least it would be beneficial for everyone to sort of know what everyone else is doing. I'm not leading that effort by any stretch. Again, it's a citizen effort, but I know that there was a deep desire to tell the story of the watershed in this area, and of course, you all would know that story best. So I know that they definitely wanted to have heavy tribal involvement. So again, I don't know if those projects can be combined, or certainly hopefully there's a willingness to have some more awareness around what each are doing. And so if I may ask, is it accurate that there's a cultural center being talked about, and where is that project at? Because I would just love to know more about it.
I'm not gonna be able to
So, well, I'll add a little bit of context and then everyone else can weigh in. So we talk about what we call a living cultural center, and that's really a way of contrasting with what museums have traditionally been. For Indigenous peoples, right, museums have often been places that displayed us as things of the past, as sort of static, mummified cultures. Living cultural center suggests, right, that we are here, we're thriving, we're continuing, we change, we're not just objects behind glass. So that's, but it's in the tradition of the museum in the sense that that's where we would like to see a lot of our culture that is appropriate to be displayed. We're thinking about an archive there. We have lots and lots of historical documents that we'd like our members and our researchers to have access to, photographs. Language department will probably be housed there. We have a lot of materials from elders, folks that have now passed, where our language has been recorded. So those revitalization efforts are ongoing and important. It would really be up to our membership how the watershed interpretive work fit or didn't fit. As far as the location, so if you know our business campus down there, we own land between there and here, just north of the hotel. That's one of the areas, probably the most talked about area that would go. Some of the work that is, well, I can let the planning department, Les Campani's planning department have to talk about that. But we've got some infrastructure work to do to sort of get that ready. So I'll leave it there and let other folks weigh in. And Les, go ahead if you want to say more about where we are with the infrastructure part of it.
Thank you, Chairman. Yes, the pickup of that is in some of the designs that we're looking at. We have a, like I said, in planning department, we have road engineers, consultants. And so part of our plan is in development is not just looking at tomorrow, but looking at 10 years down the road. So we're looking at developing entryways and infrastructure on what we have already there on property. And so part of that is a design of where we might want to put the cultural center if it's so picked by the general membership. So that's what we're in the development stages of that now. We do have somewhat rough draft, but nothing hard. It's just all conceptual at this point. Of course, the entryway to 97 as well as, there's that. But really it's kind of developing our whole property linearly and looking at it and how we can redo a lot of the old systems that we have. So it's kind of upgrading our systems as well. And we would have the design of the parking lot and the lighting and all such, but of course there's still much more work on the design of the center itself.
So then that would just be on the campus on Highway 97. So I'm trying to envision it. So, and I appreciate you just being able to talk us through it. Is there kind of a master plan for the campus for additional things as well that we might? I'm just thinking where we can help and support, and I'm thinking ODOT's probably going to want to be involved. I'm thinking Highway 97 egress and access is probably going to need to be. I mean, I'm thinking all of these things right now as you discuss this. So.
Yeah, correct. That all that is one. I guess you could say one big picture. But of course, can't get there unless you come off 97. So there is in the planning phase, there is all these phases 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Of course, it's for the development of our properties. The Living Culture Center is phase 1, something that we can start designing. But as we put in backbone roads and start to look at the development of the parking lots, RV park comes into play as well. And it's kind of how our membership wants us to proceed forward and move, but the addition of possibly an expansion of our casino as well, maybe. But these are, like I said, years down the road. They're not going to happen tomorrow. So there is all this planning all the way down to our property, the Rapids property that you see coming off. So if you would picture that of development from there going north up into the past the casino, and of course we're going to be doing a fuels project in that area soon, this spring. So once we open it up, you'll be able to see a little bit more.
Yeah, so we're of course terrified that it's gonna burn up. Somebody will throw a cigarette out there, so you'll see our crews doing some work to make that more fire resistant as soon as the time is right. And there will be work with ODOT. In fact, the planning department has worked a great deal already with ODOT. They've done traffic studies. I've lost track. There's 3 or 4.
Yeah, we've done several traffic studies. We're working with the ODOT folks down there and development, looking at traffic counts as well as infrastructure from the casino into town. Of course, the safe routes to schools program as well. And then you can see here with our facility across the street of our fitness center, of course, making up sidewalks and so on. We're heavily involved with ODOT and the city as well in planning this project. But yeah, really involved with ODOT in whatever we do moving forward. So there's been some plans, and of course we're still talking with their engineers and engineers. Engineer lingo is a little above me right now, but we're in that stage.
If I'm remembering correctly, ODOT has agreed that the left-hand turn out of our parking lot headed toward town, like 5, 6, 7 o'clock is failing during the week. Is that right?
That's correct. Yes, our access onto 97 is failing, and as you can see, we're in a situation where you have traffic that's coming off of coming north, coming up over the bridge past the mill. And we're just getting bottlenecked right there. And of course, with 62 coming in, and then of course the speed change. There is no speed change. It's all 65. So it is an issue for us that we need to work around and collaborate with hopefully with you and with ODOT on how can we develop that into something that's more safer for not only our community but for also our travelers to and fro.
In those initial conversations, have they talked about what type of treatment they would want to make to that access? Are they talking about putting in a light for you, off ramps, roundabout? I mean, are they talking any of those?
Well, yeah. Well, we're right now talking about. There was talk about a roundabout, but that's more on our property, but not a light, just additional lane widening at this point because of that access is going north, coming out. There is just not enough room there to get up to speed, especially for truck traffic, and as traffic merges north. Being able to widen that for them to get up to speed before they get into the real traffic. But also, we're looking at access too. When we're developing and for the living cultural centers, also if you can envision in the flat of also developing a road that goes to the north and other access, only to be used at times when we're having events to where we have too much traffic trying to enter the road at one point. We can allow for other access as well and develop that.
I love that conversation, and I love the way it's going. I mean, that improvement to 97, whatever it ends up being, I think it needs to serve a few different roles, right? One, it needs to promote access to your facility, but it also needs to make it safer. As you leave that facility now, right, and so if I go all the way back to like the 242 fire, I was up here quite a bit, and thank you very much for providing the parking lot and allowing that to be used for emergency services and CERT and Red Cross and everybody else who set up and used your property. But I came up a couple of times a day as I was checking on people, and taking that left-hand turn back to town, it can get a little hairy. And it's not exactly safe right now, especially when traffic backs up and it's all doing 65 miles an hour. And then people start to get impatient. We're not very far away from losing people there, and I don't know if we have already, but it needs to be safer. And when you slow people down, And if we can slow people down on Highway 97 as they come in front of your property, it'll also promote, them to pull over and see what this is all about. So I'd love to plug in, and I know others would too, where it's appropriate.
We did last year. Of course, it was too late, working with ODOT. We put in for a raise grant. Of course, that's pretty competitive, and we just weren't at that stage yet. And we were actually talking about interchange, but we just, in order to qualify, we had to be pretty close to being shovel ready, and we weren't there. Neither one of us were. But that gave us a good picture of what we need to do in moving forward. And so those opportunities may come back around, but we'll work on being able to be shovel ready or to get close to that design.
Yeah, and interchange would be interesting. I worry that an interchange, if that's the way ODOT's leaning, or if that's the way you guys are talking, would promote people to drive past you, right? And not slow anybody down. I'd rather people have to slow down and decide whether or not they're gonna stop versus put it in fifth gear and just blow right by you.
Yeah, those are some of the challenges when you start to look at road development or traffic movement of what you gain or what you lose, and having those. I think as we move forward, having those conversations with all stakeholders involved on transportation would be productive, because that is the big thing is you want people to stop, but you don't want it to be a hazard. And surprisingly or not, we haven't, the statistics show that there hasn't really been a fatality in that stretch of the road. Of course, we've had some other places, but not particularly right there, which we're pretty lucky at this point.
Well,
Yeah.
I was just gonna say, Commissioner Minty, I don't want your question about the Watershed Interpretive Center to get swallowed up and lost in this discussion. So even if it ends up that it's not a good fit for a living cultural center, we would love to work with you on that in whatever ways that you want to reach out to us.
Thank you for that. And yes, we and the group that's working on it, I know wants to engage with you on it. So we'll sort of offline put together a chance for more conversation around that.
and if I may, so to that end, and thank you, Chairman, for bringing us back around, because we kind of got out into the weeds there for a little bit, and it wouldn't be my first time. But I love the idea, the cultural center. I think it's great. It would also be, I think, a good idea if we can figure out a way that you have some presence in the urban growth boundary in downtown Klamath Falls. I think if there was some type of what you're thinking of, and I've heard this presentation as well, if you guys were plugged in, because right now there really isn't a tribal presence in Klamath Falls, right? It's all kind of centered up north, and de-siloing ourselves and bringing ourselves together as a community, if we're plugged in different areas. I don't know, I'm not making sense, I'm rambling, but I think you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I do. I could hear our members saying, well, we do have a presence, we got a big presence, and they're thinking about themselves. Also our health facilities.
Yes.
So,
You're right.
but no, point well taken. I think that Tanea Miller, the tribal liaison, who's actually home ill today, would be the best way for us to make sure that we get the appropriate folks together at that meeting. I think it would probably certainly be our OMODOT department, which in our language is of and from the water. But if you think natural resources department, if you want tribal government, we'd love to be involved in any way that we can. Thank you for inviting us.
Should we move down the agenda? All right, so we started already talking about Highway 97. I think that kind of led us into that, but I don't know if I placed this on the agenda, and Councilmember Lang and I have had this conversation a little bit over the course of the last year or so, maybe it was before. Really trying to work together in promoting a expansion of Highway 97 connecting Chiloquin and downtown Klamath Falls. Right now, that stretch of road is pretty dangerous. We all know we travel it quite a bit. Highway 97 south between Bend and Klamath happens to be the second deadliest piece of highway in the state of Oregon. And the fact that, you know, your headquarters are separated from services in downtown Klamath Falls by part of the most dangerous piece of highway is a problem. And we need to be working on that. Now, where we go around the lake, I don't know what you do there, right? You're talking viaducts and billions, literally with a B, of dollars. But even as you come around and you just get past Algoma, number one, Algoma is an extraordinarily dangerous intersection. Not just for the people that are pulling out, but the people traveling the highway. And then as soon as you get past that, it's dangerous all the way up here. And we have multiple fatalities all the time. So I would like to figure out a way where we can start to collaborate, especially with the bipartisan infrastructure program, in any way that we can try to access federal funds, because the state doesn't have the money, to actually improve that to a separated 4-lane highway that was safe, had the right types of accesses in the right place. I wanted just to maybe plant a seed that we could start working together on having that conversation, get our senators down here, get them involved, get our congressmen involved, and see if we can't get that to be a priority for them as well.
On that, having that collaboration with the Councilman Lang, ODOT, are they at the table, so to speak?
Yeah, and we've had conversations with them, Councilman Lang and myself and Ben Ebner from ODOT had a joint conversation, this is 6, 8, 10 months ago. And they're very willing, they'd love to improve it, they just don't have any money, right, is what it comes down to. As House Bill 2017, when it was passed several years ago, allocated and increased the gas tax and allocated a lot of money for the state road program, but all of that's being spent on, you know, another bridge to Washington and the Rose Quarter. So it's not gonna make its way down here, and it's not equitable. So we're gonna have to go look for funding elsewhere.
Would possibly another partner be the city of Chiloquin as a outlying community?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Because the folks that live in the community, they don't have access to services in a safe way.
I wanted to throw Ben's name out there, but I didn't know if
Yeah, I will.
Thanks. Yeah, that'd be great to put together a meeting and do some collaboration with Ben and everyone.
So of course, the one way to save a little bit of time and not get too far out of our skis is to make sure that we work with the interim culture and heritage director, which is Les's third hat. Because of course we've got sensitive sites all along, and anytime we start turning dirt, you know, we have to make sure that we know where we're at and check closely with the tribes to know what's there and what's not there, so that we're not, you know, getting in our own way as we move forward. So it might be good to do all that preliminary kind of stuff before we start talking with other officials about, you know, where we want to do it.
Okay, no, that makes a lot of sense.
And I'm sorry, Commissioner, you said you weren't thinking so much around the lake. You're thinking.
Yeah, just, you know, you have a mountain on one side and a cliff and the railroad on the other side. Right there, I mean, yeah, it would be great to be able to do some type of treatment. But I think at the end of the day, we're probably just gonna have to slow people down there. And quite frankly, that doesn't end up being, and surprisingly so, the most dangerous part of that highway. It ends up being where as soon as it gets opened up and there is access to Highway 97, like Algoma and like Shady Pine and like those other areas where people are entering the highway, and where it opens up to where it's freezing easier and people are just willing to drive faster, that's where the accidents are happening. So I think that should be our focus, because it's really about safety. Well, and I just don't think it's truly feasible to improve the highway once you get to the mountain.
Anytime we start talking about messing with the lake, it gets messy in lots of ways.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does.
I think, looking at that stretch of the road too, is, looking at wind, because basically it's the wind. It snows, it rains, it freezes, and that wind just compacts things, of looking at wind channels or something of trying to get the wind off the road surface, and I think that would help. Of course, it'll always be icy, but to some extent, that wind, when it gets through there, it really creates quite the hazard. I've seen cars, get kind of blown by the wind, but I think there's opportunity to just collaborate, look at other things. Great, thank you.
And a joint effort's gonna have more success than any of us working individually. So maybe there's an opportunity there. So I don't know what next steps on that one should be. I mean, obviously, we'll try to put together a team. It sounds like Councilman Anderson, you're the person to tag.
Yes, please, planning department,
Okay, so tag, you're it. You just got more work. You already had 3 hats.
And this is gonna touch all 3 of them, so.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely get Ben, and I don't know, Councilman Lang would probably still wanna be involved, but maybe just try to get some preliminary local group together, and then we'll start working on trying to drag our senators and stuff like that into the mix to try to look for money. Oh yeah, Jeremy Morris, our Public Works Director. Yeah, he'd be his priority.
And of course, Tanea. So we all know where we're supposed to be.
Yes. Did anybody have anything else on that item?
Sounds good.
Perfect. Moving down, museums.
That was me as well. I want to thank Treasurer Hatcher for being recently at the listening session that the museum held related to the upcoming observation of the 150 years of the Modoc War. I know that our museum folks really appreciated that opportunity, and I just want to, I really liked what you said, Chair, in the beginning about a living cultural center versus sort of a traditional museum. And I just want to use this opportunity to hopefully encourage further collaboration on that celebration coming up. I know that our museum folks are really heartfelt in their desire to do it appropriately. And so please help guide us on that. And then additionally, if there's, I know there's other opportunities around Fort Klamath that we've sort of asked for guidance on. So I just want to, I guess, a little bit beg that when we ask for guidance, please help us, because we're only we are genuinely wanting to do it correctly, but we don't know what we don't know. So sort of on behalf of our museum director, and he may be logged in via Zoom, just hopefully when we do reach out, please reach back. And again, thank you to Treasurer Hatcher for being here recently.
So let me be first one to apologize for that. He has reached out to us numerous times about these issues. As far as the 150th anniversary goes, right, we're working pretty closely with the National Monument down there, and would love to have you all be part of that as much as you can. The interpretive signage issues, for example, out at Fort Klamath, I did have some conversations with him about it, saw what I thought would be some issues for us. Those are currently with our Culture and Heritage Committee. If there's a group that works less quickly than council, it might be the Culture and Heritage Committee. But it's not that we're not interested, it's just that we're too dang busy to get everything done. But I appreciate the push, and it is important to us, so we'll get to work on that. We did just finish up some signage with the state, right, which is going to be down at Moore Park.
Moore Park.
Yeah, so we do get it done, but it just takes us a little while. So thank you for the push.
Yeah, just a quick update on the signage that is on our agenda, and Matt reached out and I had a conversation with Matt, so we did the Wednesday, every Wednesday meetings, correct? Yeah, so we do, I believe we have one of our culture and heritage folks that will be participating or rotate folks onto that interaction. Thank you.
I was just gonna say, don't ever feel that you don't need to reach out and remind us again, because we, get very overwhelmed where we don't see every email. And so don't ever feel like, hey, you guys see this, I'm sending it to you again, so.
So you just gave me permission to be a pest.
Yes, I did, I did.
You're gonna be so.
Oh, and I can tell you,
You're just on the list with other pests on.
we're gonna be in trouble with our members too, because this is very important to them, so thank you for bringing it.
We good on museums? All right, so,
One more.
yes,
On
please.
museums. So, and I know it's been private at least in the past, but the Fable, do we know what the status of that is? We had some conversations with them, maybe left off 6-7 months ago. One of the issues for us was that it was difficult to go much further without an AGPRA inventory, a Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act inventory. We were aware that they had started receiving some federal dollars, which put them within the domain of that law. And they were, working very diligently and eager to help, but I don't know what happened. It seemed to have kind of dropped off. And so we certainly could have reached out as well. Like I said, we're real busy, so what is the status of them? Does the county now have, no, still in private hands?
Still private. They've approached us in the past, and our willingness to absorb that into our museum system. And I've been involved in those conversations quite a bit as well. I'll be perfectly blunt, no thank you. I mean, that looked like an absolute headache. It would have been my position, as you just mentioned, that an inventory of all of those artifacts were done, that they were returned to the appropriate tribe prior to us taking possession of anything, because then we would have had to do it. I mean, because that would have been the first thing we would do if it were to come into county hands. And we've had that conversation. Not only would we want to do it, we would have to do it. We'd have no choice, right? It would be something that I would want to do anyway. So once that's completed, in my opinion, it's now in our gallery, right? Because that's what's left inside that facility, and is that a museum piece. So it's been one of those things that we've talked about in the past. If you took all of the artifacts out of that building, is it even still a museum? And then at that point, what asset does it have to the community in such a way that we would be using taxpayer dollars to fund it and to keep it operating and things like that? I just don't know the answer to that, but as of right now, it's still a private museum, and we haven't really pursued further conversations in trying to acquire it into our system.
I might offer that I am a bit intrigued by the prospect of perhaps that ending up at the county, and I'll say and instead of but. My desire in that would be that would be done with the tribes as some kind of, I had it on my heart a while back that might be a really cool joint project to take on, but I don't know what that would look like. That was all just, sort of something that hit my heart is, well, if they really wanted to turn it over into public hands or governmental hands, might that be an opportunity for the county and the tribes to sort of jointly own it or something? But Commissioner DeGroot is correct that the conversations around it sort of stopped. So I don't know what the private owners, what their plans are and intention. I might offer and hope that we might have a future conversation on it if they come back around and if you had some interest, I would be interested in, I'm only 1 of 3, so you all know how that works.
Yeah.
I'll throw in my 2 cents. I think that as Chair DeGroot has said, a lot of work has to be done before I would be interested in that, but I absolutely agree with Commissioner Minty as well. I look at that as a potential opportunity, and I would love to sit down and talk about what opportunities that might hold when the hard work was done.
Well said.
Why don't I put my position this way? I'm not interested unless the tribes are gonna be interested. And we're gonna lead it together, otherwise, I'm out.
So we don't know.
Yeah.
When you're talking about a presence, that could be one vehicle for that, I don't know how much work, you have more of an idea of how much work it's gonna take. But, that is something to think about if an opportunity or it ever looks like it may work out. That is one way because I know we haven't got our agricultural center up. I don't know whether that would be something our general membership would want, but it may be a way to display some of the large collection that we have.
So to be continued.
Yes. And we can talk about, and there might be an opportunity for us to gather additional information and then place that on an agenda when we meet next quarter. And I'm kind of making notes of other things that we might want to talk about next quarter as well, so that might be something.
It's good.
Okay. Next is Berkeley Springs or Haggleston. We've talked about this many times over the past several years, but really interested to hear maybe the vision that the tribes might have for that location and how it should be managed. If you're more interested in managing it than us, what's your thoughts? There's some ownership hurdles, but there's also some other ways. There's ways to get around that with just mutual agreements that just take care of it, things like that. So really curious to know your thoughts.
So I can do some introductory thoughts about it, and then everybody else can please chime in. So Berkeley Springs, or Ditkos, as we call it, has tremendous historical, cultural, and ecological importance for us. Ecologically, of course, it is one of the places where our trout are still doing very well. We, of course, believe that has to do with water quality. So we would love to be able to reconnect that to its traditional historical function, to the lake, which would mean putting those wetlands back in place. We're going to do some of that already, but of course the dream would be to extend it farther south out into what once was a big locust bed. I think you all know locust is a staple for us. It's a first food. It's something we would really love to have more of and to be able to put back into our diets and to make a more meaningful part of our culture again. It also was an important stopping over place. Families traveling back and forth to Lamona and Klamath Falls, going back into horse and buggy days. And it was a long ways from place to place. That was where they would stop and they would camp and visit and spend time. There's some other cultural importances to it that I don't want to necessarily talk publicly about. But it would be really important to the tribes ultimately to have ownership of it again, to have it be part of our trust lands. I understand that there are some hurdles, I think, in the transfer agreement that was sent by the family to the county. And of course, we would love to see if there's something we might do in the interim before those larger hurdles could be addressed as far as co-management sorts of things, interpretive work, protection. I don't think in the summer a week goes by that I don't get a call from a tribal member who says, there's somebody out there doing their laundry, there are people swimming in it, there are people taking water out of it and filling a truck. And so there's always deep concern from our members and wanting to protect it. So that would be in an introductory what I'd have to say, but please, other council members, if you want to add to that, go ahead.
Well, you add on to that, a couple of years ago, we seen what it turned into when there was no management of it, and it got pretty, it was an eyesore, to be truthful with you. But yeah, ecologically, with the restoration efforts that's going to be starting happening there, it would be great for the tribe to manage that and have that in its management plan for the moving forward with the Chwam. I think it would speak loudly to our relationship with Klamath County as well, its partnership in that it's a pretty cool place, and it's one of the last places that you can actually, I would probably go there and take a drink of water now if I could, and it's clean water. Thank you.
So I'm happy to hop in here. We've had some discussions, Chairman and I had a couple of discussions, actually also with the predecessor. If you recall, we were having a lot of overnight camping issues there, and it was just really becoming trashy, especially during the initial stages of COVID. And so we just closed it entirely. And that was a decision the board made. Let's just close it because we're not going to deal with that. Then obviously now it needed to be reopened. I'm only one of three, but I can tell you I've had this discussion several times with our parks manager, Tom Christ, and he'd be very excited to have a conversation about tribal management of that facility. What I would offer is perhaps maybe a framework of what you think management looks like, what public access looks like, and to what degree. Obviously, let's kill overnight camping. Let's get it locked up at dusk. Maybe if it opens up at dawn. And I mean, I'd be really interested to see maybe a vision for it, and then perhaps we could take that vision and turn it into an IGA of sorts, and work towards tribal management of the facility, and then as you said, I mean, we can look at ownership and stuff maybe down the road, but I think that's going to be extraordinarily complicated. Just with the way there's revisionary clauses in the deed where it was given to the county, if it's not owned and operated a certain way, then it perhaps has to be given back to the heirs of the folks that actually dedicated it as a park to the county in the first place. Anyway, it could get really complex, but a long-term management agreement, I'm very open to, and I'm just one.
I like the idea of you guys managing that area, but I'm with Chair DeGroot. I think maybe our next meeting or the quarterly meeting after that, it's going to take some time, since the county is going to have to maintain ownership of that land the way that deed is or the way that transaction took place is written. We're going to need to understand really what does that look like? What's the plan for that area? What's the improvements look like? What's the security look like? All of those issues. But the concept of turning the management over to the tribe, I'm fully behind.
So perhaps, Chairman, if it works for you, you could put some type of proposal together for the board to consider as far as, and then give us an idea of what the vision is for the property. And in there, it would need to detail, like I said before, what public access continues to look like, if any. And I'm definitely open to obviously closing it at night. The overnight camping there has to stop. Because well, it's problematic. Aside from all of the significance to the tribes, it's problematic for us because it just ends up looking like a dump, and yeah, it's not good for anyone, so.
Well, I certainly appreciate all the goodwill. I can say that the very first issue for us will be the security of the place as a cultural site, the security of the place as a haven for our endangered species that are going extinct. So that'll be first off, I know, in our members' minds. But we can make that part of an internal conversation. I do want to emphasize that we don't want to give up on the long-term ownership issue. I understand it's complex, and are those documents public documents? Are they?
Of course, yeah, and we can get them provided to you.
Okay, that was something for our attorneys also to take a look at. We, are not unaccustomed to long term. We think in terms of multiple generations, not, just here and now or in the immediate future. So we're always looking down the road for grandkids, great grandkids, and beyond.
And to be honest, it could be as simple as a conversation with the family, right? So.
Where we might want to start, and I think that the IGA can develop over time, right? So I don't think it has to be perfect to get started. If you were wanting to gate it and then put together maintenance of the gate when it's open and closed just to start, and we did some type of an IGA just for that piece alone, I'd be willing to look at that. That way we could at least secure it and protect it to a certain degree, and then work towards the overall vision in some type of supplemental IGA or new IGA in the future, if that's something that you wanted to look at, because that would be a little bit faster.
Yeah, I'm seeing lots of head shakes, so wonderful. Thank you. We'll get to work on that.
Okay, perfect. That's gonna be fun. Just it's maybe a heads up as a follow up. The bathrooms on site out there. There's also some ties to how those were funded with state parks. So if the bathrooms don't stay as part of the overall vision, there's funds that have to be paid back to the state. So just keep that in mind. And it's not silly money, but it's not no money either.
But the county basically, you maintain the facility, it's just basically how they were put there was under the state.
Right, yeah, we maintain them, they're just vault toilets, but the, State Parks Marine Division paid for them.
Okay.
And if you don't continue to use them in the manner in which they were intended, then you have to repay the grant that was used to pay for the facility. And I wanna say it was $80,000. Like I said, it's not huge money, but it's not no money. I know, the fact that we say $80,000 isn't huge money anymore. We just kind of, it's $100,000. It's kind of sad, but it's also kind of, it's just a vehicle. Right, it's a Durango. A carton of eggs. Yep. Housing, yeah.
Yeah, let's talk about housing.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Oh, so this is on our mind every day, all the time. Let me back up. We did a housing analysis a while back, and really it was more informal, but we tried to take a look at, and I know the city of Klamath Falls has paid for a housing analysis to be done as well. But our best estimates, just within the county, we're somewhere between 400 and 600 units shy today of meeting the housing needs. You compound that with, and I don't know if you're familiar, so earlier this year or in December during the economic summit, we got phone calls from the state economist that was really curious what's going on in Klamath, because last year the state actually, for the first time in a very long time, declined in population, but not Klamath. We continued to increase in population. So our housing needs are just getting more and more pressing. And we talk about affordable housing, but there's also workforce housing and attainable housing. And quite frankly, you can add a door at any income level and it'll make a difference at this point because it's such an enormous issue. We have had, I mean, I don't know if you're aware, but right now, all housing development gets 50% off in our building department. Please build a house, we'll give you every discount we can think of, anything that we can afford. We're trying to make it easier for folks to build subdivisions and develop areas. We helped fund a grant program in cooperation with the city of Klamath Falls to bring back online housing that had become uninhabitable, and that program it's really had slow legs, but is really starting to get momentum and with some pretty significant success. As you're probably aware, whenever you have housing development where there's government money involved, it becomes extraordinarily expensive on a cost per door basis and almost becomes cost prohibitive to build those homes. One of the last affordable housing developments that was built in Klamath Falls, the cost per door ranged between $250,000 and $300,000 per door for a little apartment. Where right now we're bringing back online single family homes through that grant program, that those homes absolutely, I mean, they're just blighted eyesores that nobody lives in, and we give them a $50,000 grant and they're turning into nice, beautiful little houses, and we're revitalizing neighborhoods. That program has a lot of legs, I believe. So there's $1.5 million that was contributed to that project. Once that project has developed a little bit more, it's going to be my intention to really take a look at it, and then hopefully we can try to leverage that and call it a pilot and say, okay, we did 16 homes with $1.5 million. Can we do it? It was more than that. It was double. Anyway, I don't remember how many homes it was. Sorry, but what could we do with $20 million? What kind of impact could we make? Because with $20 million, if we're just building affordable housing, then you can build one apartment complex. But could we revitalize our whole community?
So, project over there on Homedale, what is that, Pheasant, whatever, they're building, they just took off like a couple months ago, but they're building big 2-story homes, and now I notice it looks like they're putting in little tiny homes right next to Homedale by the canal, right there. That's what it looks like, is they're putting like 5 or 6 little tiny homes right there next to this old house that's sitting there. But is that all public funded there, or is that?
None of it, that's all private developer. So Pheasant Run is a national builder, D.R. Horton, bought that property and they built 35 homes that they're in the process of. They built fast. They're going up
super fast.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive. And then those smaller homes that are being built as a separate developer that was putting those up. So there's a lot of construction going on right now, but quite frankly, it's not even taking care of the backlog, and we're falling further behind every day because we're not building fast enough. The growth is significantly outpacing the development.
It is, and then the prices of them, it's like, how can people afford those? I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah, I just bought my son a house because he can't afford one.
Oh, my goodness. My daughter just rented a house, they advertised it as a 3-bedroom, it's not, it's 1 bedroom that has a closet for $1,500, and it's under 900 square feet.
It's ridiculous.
Wow, it is ridiculous.
Anyway, that's maybe kind of in a nutshell, but there's not a lot happening in Chilliquin area. This is all happening right now, really inside the urban growth boundary of Klamath Falls. So I want to help wherever we possibly can, and I don't know if there's areas where we can partner with the tribes to facilitate some of these same types of things. If you have access to funds where you could be giving your membership grants to acquire and redevelop these homes, I mean, you can make $50,000 go a long ways if you're willing to, put in a little bit of work and a little bit of money yourself. But the program has been wildly successful. We monitor it really, really well. We make sure that our building department is involved. We make sure our assessor is involved. We make sure we're vetting contractors that are getting involved to try to protect people. All of that is taking place because the last thing we want to do is to have public funds be used to take advantage of someone or be taken advantage of. But
Is there a, I don't know if you can do this or not, but is there a place where we can go and possibly see, in town, we can see where this work's going? Some of it has happened. I think I know a place where it's happened, but I'm not sure. I don't want to say the location, but.
absolutely. Yeah,
That'd be cool, cause I've seen a block of homes, small homes, older homes, and now they're getting the facelift, and it's like, I go by there, it's like, whoa. So, change the street, actually.
there's like 20 projects ongoing right now, and we can get you, we could set up a tour. Denise Stillwell at SCOED is, so SCOED is managing that program for the county and the city, and we can set up a description, pictures, tour. Commissioner, I think you're the vice chair of that organization right now.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I think we're finishing 2 this month, if I heard right.
I don't know if zoning has anything to do with it on, not really.
No, I mean, when it comes to housing, and I'm sorry, I'm totally manipulating the conversation, and I apologize at that. And the last thing I will do is give me a microphone. But, and housing, I'm pretty passionate about. I've been involved in real estate and housing for 25 some odd years. But, and then I lost my train of thought. Oh, so around the state you hear that land use and zoning and buildable lands, those types of things, buildable land inventories are a problem restricting development across the state. That is not true in Klamath. We have a ton of buildable land. We have a ton of land that is already zoned for that purpose. We have infill that could be completed. We have a lot of vacant lots that are still inside our community that could be done with or built on that already have all of the services to the lot. So that is not our restriction, quite frankly, and this is gonna sound horrible. And the biggest obstacle that we have had to really incentivizing new development within our community is because our rents were too low. Right, because the cost of construction is too high and rent was too low, so they couldn't get an appraisal, they couldn't make it pencil. Right? So we've looked at how rental guarantees, we've looked at, all different types of ways to try to get that. However, and as you mentioned just recently, Treasurer, rents are going up, and they're going up very quickly in our community, and it's because the demand is so high and the inventory is so low. And we're almost to the point now where it's gonna start making sense for development to occur. So hopefully that starts to handle itself. But at the same time, it's because we're charging so many people so much for rent. I can tell you, my family bought an apartment building 30 years ago, and when we did, the rent was $160. And now it's $750, and we're still one of the cheapest in town. It's ridiculous, right? So it's going up extremely fast. Of course, costs and everything are going up extremely fast as well. But we're getting closer.
So a couple of thoughts. One, we are very excited because we have hired a housing director. If we can find a place for him to live, he'll start the 6th of March. And I'm serious, it's a concern, Our membership has given us a very clear directive that we're to pursue all avenues to increase housing, affordable housing for our membership. The last I saw, we were somewhere around 90 families, tribal families, elders that would like to come home, but they just have nowhere to live. I haven't had a tribal member talk to me about wanting to come home and not be able to find housing since last night. Called me right after dinner, desperate to get back. We had another elder that was here in the lobby the day before who's bunking up with another family here but wants to come home. So it's a widespread need. We are hopeful, and this is gonna be a lesson as planning department head again, that we're gonna put up some units on a piece of our own property here in Chilliquin, and we've been partnering with the city on that. Hoping that it'll be enough to take maybe 25, 30 of those families off of the waiting list. But you know, we're right at the point where we're hoping they'll pull the trigger on it, and we'll see where it goes. We also, of course, have chronic problems with homelessness and even houseless elders. So the planning department has been working closely with a grant that we hope actually that we may be able to purchase Molitas and put that to work for some of our elders that lack adequate housing. Hope to hear about that any day. One of the things I'd like for our new housing director to do is to work with the county immediately on some of the programs that you're describing and see what kind of opportunities we can put our heads together and come up with to tackle this giant mess that we've got here.
The grant that you guys are waiting to hear about, is that going to cover 100% of the cost in the remodel of that facility, or are you guys gonna need some help? Because you and I have talked about this, Chairman. I think that's an amazing project that we could partner on.
I think we'll need some help.
We can always use help.
We can always use help, yes. We're not a wealthy tribe, so.
So on the housing front, I mean, is it the priority of the council to acquire housing that's tribal owned? Or are you also trying to create home ownership within your membership? I mean, because I think, because I mean, we're talking generational wealth when we can make homeowners out of our citizens, right? So I think that should also try to be, you know, a big focus. And if we can develop some type of a grant system, and perhaps if this model really works, we can go together and try to get some funding to perpetuate that grant system and acquire homes and make our citizens homeowners versus just buying them all up and making them renters. Because while that puts a roof over their head, it doesn't really lift them out of poverty. And so I think it just needs to be on top of our mind.
I think we think exactly the same thing.
We did kind of touch on a little bit about our new housing director, with finding a home. That is also a huge problem we have. We do have employees that we needed to get them here, and we can't. We have doctors that we need at our clinic. They come, they look, and they go, well, where am I gonna live? And we've lost potential medical people, mental health people, as well as directors here within this building. So it's really important. And you really touched on the affordability. You know, I don't have to tell you guys where we are in Klamath County as far as our dollars. You know, even our employees, as hard as they work, they're not making it. It's tough for them. So anything affordable we can do to help out.
Well, let's work together on that. And when when your housing director gets here and finds a home, hopefully you can call in some realtors and helping them out. Let us know how we can plug in. I mean, housing is such a huge issue, and it's going to take all of us working very hard, spending our resources, spending our time to try to make it happen. And it is housing is the way to lift people out of poverty. Really, the easiest way to lift people out of poverty, and that needs to be a focus as well.
Just wanted to call our attention back to number 7.
Yeah.
Did we skip it, or did we not?
Well, I don't know. Is that the same as Highway 97, or do we want to talk about other things?
So
Next quarter.
I got nowhere to be. So.
obviously there are dollars available there for projects beyond just roads, not that roads aren't important. I know that one of the things that we all care about is creating sustainable lives for the citizens of the county. We at least think that the path to do that is through a healthy ecosystem. That if we can restore the environment to a point where fish can survive down in the river and in the lake, and we can do that in a way where we can have sustainable agriculture and those folks can have a future that they can look forward to and know that they're gonna have a livelihood, that's a win-win for all of us. And so we think of some of these dollars going toward restoration projects, restoring the ecosystem, creating wetlands that will clean the water, that will store water longer and later, as something that I know would be harder for us to talk about, but we would like to talk about. And I think we've got, the biologists, I know we've got the biologists, and Fish and Wildlife Service has them, and other agencies have them, that maybe we can find some key spots to talk about how to put some of those dollars to work. And I know that we could get help from the federal government, from the senators. So just wanted to put that out there as a point where we might be able to cooperate.
They're not mailing you out either.
Okay. I'll jump right in. I'll tell you this. So I want to start with talking about water is not the point of these meetings, right? Collaborating to make our community better is the point of these meetings. And I think that a lot of eyes are probably on all of us in this room and online and folks that aren't with us here today to hear about when are they going to talk about water and what's that conversation going to look like, right? Because that's going to grab the headlines and that's what everybody's thinking. But all of these other items that we've talked about here today are, in my opinion, equally as important. Right? It's just important that we're lifting our entire community up in all industries and in all facets. I am very pleased, Chairman, to hear you say you want to have a conversation about what does it look like and how can we capture some of these dollars. I was on a call this morning with Fish and Wildlife. I'm gonna get myself in trouble. I was on a call this morning with Fish and Wildlife, with supervisors from the Northern Counties Reclamation, and others. And oh my goodness, I was just beating my head against the wall. And at the end of the call, I just said, I just don't even know what I'm doing here. I've been at this for 6 years and we haven't moved the needle a single bit. And I am tired. I am really, really tired because I know I can think of 100 goals, right? Because everybody has goals, but I don't know how we align those goals and get everybody on the same page to really creating some type of sustainable path forward for our community. And I tried approaching it as like this global view from the headwaters to the mouth, and the whole watershed mattered. And then sometimes I'm so frustrated, I'm just like, man, my concerns really do stop at the border because I represent Klamath County citizens and nobody else. And that happens to me as well. And then today I just told them all to leave me alone for a while. So I did, just because they were so frustrating. At the end of the day, nobody's going to solve this problem for us. That's really what it comes down to, right? If we're going to make our community better, it's going to be the people in this room and others that do this. It's not going to be the federal government. Quite frankly, I can go all the way back as far as we want to go, and the federal government hasn't done a real good job here, right? That's just my opinion. But every time they seem to stick their nose in it, they don't necessarily make things better. And our community has had ups and downs. Let's just go all the way back to time immemorial. The federal government has done a real good job here. So I don't know the path forward. I would really like to have maybe a conversation about what does success look like in Klamath County? What does success look like for the tribes? What does success look like for Main Street? what does success look like for agriculture? Because I don't know right now what it looks like, and today's probably wasn't the right day, because I was at my wit's end and about ready to give up this morning. But this conversation, I'd be really excited about having. And the feds have a lot of money. I'll take their money. I just really don't care about their opinion today.
So Chair, if I may, are you okay with that, Commissioner Hensley? So I might have a little bit of a different perspective, and I'm not as irritable as he is. Yeah. My real hope with these meetings is that we, at least in maybe this first year, that we really work on relationship building and projects that we can have success on together. I really, while I don't have an issue with trying to engage in what might be difficult conversations, I do have some hesitation around that until we've had some time to get some successes under our belt as a group. And so my hope would be that we could try to, again, work on some relationship building with each other. I mean, I think we're off to a great start, and many of us have known each other, but not as like body to body as much. So I hope we could start with that. I hope we can stay focused on things that we can all work together to be successful on. And just from my personal, what I would tell you about myself personally is that when we start getting a lot of scientists in the room, that is not my background, and I don't have expertise in that or a whole lot of knowledge, and I fear it turning into sort of one scientist and this scientist and this, and that would, I wouldn't be very productive in those meetings, because again, I don't have the experience. And so I think we're off to a really good start. My hope would be that we could kind of continue on this path, but I also don't want to suggest that I'm, shut down or unwilling to have conversations.
I'm not one to tread lightly, and I want to have hard conversations. One of the reasons that I wanted to be a commissioner is because I wanted to sit at the table. I wanted to challenge the status quo. I wanted to try to shift the needle, and I wanted to have meaningful, open dialogue with people that had a different opinion than me. And I think that gets us somewhere as a culture and as society. It's okay to be different. It's okay to find strength in your differences. And these guys have heard me say that many, many times. That's one of my core values. Open your mind, open your heart, listen to other people, and try to come up with some solutions that are beneficial for everyone. I was really encouraged when we were in Ashland, but I was also mad when we were in Ashland. I was encouraged because I felt like that was a good conversation, and we were learning about some things that maybe we could all get behind that weren't necessarily water. They were forest management, they were habitat restoration, they were other things that would enhance the basin. And I thought to myself, wow, we can really come up with some common goals that are going to enhance water quality, that are going to enhance water volume. So I think that I was encouraged by that. But where I got angry, and why I left 2 hours early, I'll admit, you never heard county commissioners in those conversations. Nobody ever said we should talk to the county commissioners. Nobody ever said Commissioner so-and-so was involved with this project. We were completely left out of the room, even though we were sitting in the room, and that frustrated me. And I was frustrated because we were there, and we want to be your partner. We want to be actively engaged. We want to work with people within Klamath County for the betterment of Klamath County for the generations to come. That's why we're all sitting here. That's why we wanted to sit down with you and have quarterly meetings with you. That's why we want to develop a stronger relationship. Because I think that there's power in strength in numbers. And I think that we accomplish a lot when we put our heads together. And quite honestly, as Commissioner DeGroot said, the federal government isn't my partner right now. I would love for them to be, but it seems like every time I turn around, I just don't agree and I get steamrolled. So I think it's important that Klamath County come together and we form this really incredible alliance and come up with some overarching goals we all agree on that will enhance water quality, enhance water volume. I know the commissioner's gonna bring up in a minute Spence Mountain. We own a mountain. That's incredible. The county owns this amazing piece of land, and we're gonna ask the tribes to sit on the committee that's gonna manage that mountain. So we've got opportunities like that before us, I think, that will strengthen our relationship, that will strengthen our desire to work together. And as Commissioner Minty said, we've got to find some real easy, quick wins. Barkley Springs is an easy win. Let's make that happen. We've got to find some common ground and some common goals that we all agree on.
I just want to say, now you know how the tribes feel sometimes. We have been in countless meetings and been talked at. I'm not a scientist either, but I do know, my people and my land, and so many times I've been talked to like I know absolutely nothing. So, now you know how we feel. I want to agree with Commissioner Minty about maybe taking little steps. I think this is great. This is great that this is happening because you guys here are local and you come to us. Now you're here where we're at and see what we have. Hopefully see what our barriers are. We need that more on the bigger scale. We need the feds to come and take a look at us here, not sit way over there and tell us what's good for us. They need to come here and see what we see on a daily basis. I do want us to work together. I think we can be more productive together. And we're gonna have those hard conversations together. And once we walk out those doors, okay, we had that conversation, let's start moving here. I think that's really important. We have a little number 9 here that says other. I just want to kind of throw out to you, commissioners, about needs that not only Klamath County as a whole need, Chiloquin needs it, Merrill needs it, Malin needs it, and that's law enforcement. I know that they're having a hard time getting officers, but I also know that the budget has a lot to do with it. Chiloquin has been without for a long time, and I know that Sheriff Caber does what he can, but sometimes we can't wait 2 hours or the next day, If there's anything that can be done on your side, that would be awesome, And again, I'm not just speaking for Chiloquin, I'm speaking for our other smaller communities that need that as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I add one thing?
Go ahead.
We're working on that.
Good.
And today's probably not the format. So I'll just give you a taste. I think that there are different ways to provide police services rather than just more money and more cops. There are ways to become much more efficient in how you police. There are ways to share resources and not duplicate effort. And we commissioners need to sit down with our law enforcement leaders and have a really hard conversation about a different way to police. So policing is equitable and fair in all of Klamath County, and right now it's not fair. But we do have some ideas on how we can make it fair, but today's probably not the format.
Okay. So I'm excited that you're here and listening to some of the comments and the collaboration that you wanna sit down and talk to us about. One of the things you mentioned about the frustration with your meeting this morning and the water, I agree with you 100%. It's not gonna take the feds, yes, we want their money, but they're not gonna fix it. And like I've always said is that whole watershed has to be fixed simultaneously, together, everybody working together to make it work. That's my opinion. And you're here asking us to be partners and to collaborate with you and have a presence in Klamath County. My request to you is how do we get other partners and agencies in Klamath County and the other city council commissioners, everybody, to recognize that the Klamath tribes are a contributing economical factor in this community. We employ probably over 300 employees who contribute to the local economy. So that would be my ask of you is how do you help us get recognized as that we are a part of this community and we're not going anywhere, but we also contribute financially. So that would be mine.
So that was awesome, and there's a whole lot to unpack. So I'll try to go back around again. So the first thing I want to do is apologize. I just soapboxed, and there was some definite frustration from this morning. Inside my soapbox. So I apologize, and I should really be taking a better lead. Chairman DeMont and I have had this conversation before. There are the FASTA meetings every Friday where we get to hear, and they end up turning into a finger pointing session. I sit and listen and I don't talk. And I will tell you, and the council should be very proud, there's one person in the room that doesn't point fingers at anybody and maintains a positive attitude, and that's your chairman. And I cannot tell you how appreciative I am at that, because there's no grown-ups in that room, save one. And that was part of my event this morning, is where's the grown-up in the room, and I'm tired of it. So thank you for that, and publicly just want to say how impressed I am at your demeanor and the way you conduct yourself in those meetings and the way you don't attack anybody. You advocate for yourself, you advocate for the Klamath tribes, you advocate for your people, but you don't do it at anybody else's expense, and you're the only one not doing it.
I'll second that. You and I had a Zoom meeting after the workshop, the summit in Ashland, and I said that exact same thing to you when you and I were on the computer with each other, how much I appreciated and respected and was very proud of you with how you conducted yourself in Ashland that day. So I second that.
So then, maybe kind of working backwards after I do say that, Treasurer Hatcher. So how do we, I'm gonna maybe simplify the question, how do we elevate the tribe's position within our community? I would say this is step one, right? We need to start having more intergovernmental conversations about what direction we're taking our community in, right? Because everybody needs to be at that table, and the tribes are no exception. In fact, should be a major contributor to the vision of our community. And one of the things that we will talk about, so I had wrote Spence on other, and Commissioner as they reached over and wrote strategic plan. So we just put together some funding to undertake a strategic plan for the county, where we'll be looking for everybody's input on who we should be, what direction this community should be going, how we should be taking care of policing, how we should be taking care of what's our economic strategy for our community, what government should even look like in our community, what policing should look like in our community, how many cities we have. I mean, people think we have Klamath County, and then we have the city of Klamath Falls. There's 5 cities in Klamath County, and a lot of people forget that as well. So I think to answer your question, this is how we do that. We make sure that we're constantly at a table having conversations about our priorities. what's going on. It's also an opportunity. These meetings aren't just about talking about what we can do together. It's also an opportunity to tell our story, about all the wonderful things that are going on. I would like to hear about, at our next meeting, what would you like to know about what's going on in Klamath County? I mean, there is a ton going on. What do you want to know? I would say we also need to have you plugged in with all of the agencies that are working on improving our community, like the Chamber of Commerce, like Klamath County Economic Development Association, like Discover Klamath. These are all organizations that the tribes should be members of and should have positions on boards. Spence Mountain is on here. We just acquired 7,000 acres there next to, Spence Mountain. 7,600 acres. And it's a mountain. And we want to have we're creating an advisory council to tell us how it should be managed. The trail system is wonderful, but what else should we be doing with that? There's all kinds of timber management work that needs to be done. That land has been absolutely rampaged. How do we restore it? How do we get funding to restore it? I mean, there's all of those conversations that we want to have that you need to be helping with. So that's how.
To add to that, when we put together the structure of that advisory committee, there's a specific seat for a tribal member, dedicated. So we just need somebody to apply. So we need that. And also, I'm an ex officio board member for Discover Klamath. There's a specific spot at the table on their board for a tribal member, and they're looking for that. So there are ways and there are organizations that have specific seats for you at the table. We just need to get those filled.
That's good. Quick question.
On those seats, are you looking just for a tribal member, or are you looking for a council? Because it depends, You can't just have a tribal member speak for the Klamath tribes, so that.
I guess my vision of that would be somebody on the council or your designee.
Yes.
So if you wanted to assign that work to somebody within your staff, because we all know you're busy, I think that would absolutely be appropriate.
So once again, I'm gonna invoke Danae Miller as the tribal liaison. I think that would be just the starting point, and then she can sort of direct the traffic, and we can figure out who the right folks are, who the right person is for those. I know that the Discover Klamath, we've had tribal members there. I think Taylor, worked there before. Now, isn't Ellsworth Lang, Councilman Lang, also being involved? No? Okay, all right. Some of it's just capacity. So, yeah, but thank you very much. Yeah, we very much want to be involved in those. And I don't want to leave the difficult political discussion. I understand it's fraught with politics. It's tough for us too. But I want to say, first of all, that I don't think it was a soapbox. If we were being omitted from participation, you could bet I'd be on a real big soapbox. So I don't see us solving this problem without the county. It's just not going to happen. Even though, as Treasurer said, for us, this ecosystem doesn't stop at the state line. The state line's a latecomer, right? It's all the way down from the ocean to the headwaters up here. So one of the things that we enjoy as a sovereign nation that predates the United States is government-to-government relationships with them. So I have no problem with making the point to them that we need to partner with you if we're going to get to a point where this ecosystem is healthy. And again, we think that healthy ecosystem is the basis for a sustainable economy that includes a vibrant agricultural component. So I think even though it's hard, it's politically fraught on both sides, I do see a path forward. I'm not going to say it's not without political risks for all of us, but to me that's what leadership is.
Okay.
I'm really happy to hear you state you do see a path forward, because so do we. So thank you for that.
And I tell you, and I've said this many, many times, there's some big problems to solve in Klamath. And if I feel like I'm doing the right thing and we're working towards a solution, they can fire me tomorrow. I don't care. So, yeah, I'm willing to have the conversation and let's keep doing it. I think that we need to hold the federal government accountable. They're spending a lot of money in our communities, and sometimes it just doesn't feel like they have any semblance of a plan whatsoever. And they most certainly haven't sat down with the communities and asked them what's important to them necessarily. And I'll just say, I yelled at them this morning, you call me a stakeholder one more time, and I swear I'm gonna come through this screen. You know, we are the county government that represents everybody in the borders of Klamath County, right? Everybody, and we feel, and I feel that, I know my colleagues feel that way. When we speak, we feel like we speak for everyone, and if we're not, that's why these meetings are so important, right? Because we have to know how you feel too, because in some rooms, we're not gonna speak for you, because, you know, again, it's sovereign government, but you vote for us, right? You get a ballot. Yeah. You might have voted for the other guy, I don't know. But it matters, and they're really not listening, it seems like. You know, they're talking about this next round of funding for the Fish and Wildlife Service and the process in which they're going to be vetting projects and selecting projects. And really what I heard was, we want to hear from everybody, but we already made up our mind.
That sounds familiar.
And in which case, and I said, what am I doing here? We're busy people. I am on my soapbox again. So I apologize, but if we can get on the same page and we should tell them how to do this, that's how we get this done.
And Commissioner Minty, I didn't mean to be dismissive of your desire to go slow. I fully understand that. If that's what works with us, we'll
So this agenda is complete, and we already mentioned Spence Mountain. I wanted to be able to say something about Spence Mountain and the fact that we want your help in trying to devise a plan. So when this board created that advisory group, we created a specific position that the only person that can fill that position is a tribal member. So we'll reach out, we'll have staff reach out again to try to get your input on who that should be. We're working on a strategic plan. We definitely want you at the table helping us create that strategic plan. And then Commissioner, you put CIS BIOS.
I did. So conversation for another meeting, not today, but I just want to plant a seed to get you thinking about the CIS Bio project again. I'm the type of person that loves to jump all in when there's a good idea, and I recognize now after some great conversations with you that jumping all in is probably not a good path forward. Let's tread lightly and walk slowly and have more meaningful conversations. So I get it, but I would like to, at our next meeting, have that conversation. What does that look like? And if it's not a big multi-million-dollar project, but maybe we buy a little piece of land and we do some test out of the lake, maybe we can do some pilot project, but I really would like to have a meaningful conversation about some other clean water projects as well. So just plant that seed.
Well, I've said enough today. I want to thank you for having us. Definitely appreciate being here. This has been, I don't know, I've had a lot of fun, actually. It's been a great conversation. I hope to continue it. As you mentioned, Chairman, it's precedent setting. And this could be a path forward for years and years to come, far beyond our 10 years. So is there, speaking of next meetings, is there anything that we should be having on our radar, things that we can prepare when you come down, information that you would like to have, any of those types of things that you can think of that we can prepare for you?
I'm thinking we need a little time with that. I'm betting we're gonna get some feedback from our membership about this meeting, and so there's sure to be some topics embedded in those conversations. But I also wanted to thank you all. I mean, yeah, precedent setting, historic, long overdue. I want to thank you for the respectful way that you come here and interacted with us. And going forward as partners, I think that we can get a lot done. And it'll just be happier times around here to work well together as opposed to be at loggerheads all the time. So thank you for that.
Thank you, I enjoyed it too, it was nice.
So with that, at least on our side, are there any objections to adjourning the meeting? So hearing none, at least for the Klamath Tribes, the meeting's adjourned.
Anything for us? We're adjourned at 4:20.